We're back here in the tackle room, and today we're talking about 3 ways that you can still fish fast in the summer and have a lot of success. Stick around, you don't want to miss this one.
There we go. That's a nice one, honey. That's a nice one.
And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to lowbrow fishing. And as summer progresses and that water heats up, it seems like any sort of moving bait, any sort of power fishing, that bite just dies right off, right? That's why after July 4th, we've talked about it before. I've heard other anglers talk about it before. After the 4th of July, a lot of anglers, they call it quits for pretty much the rest of the year and wait until next year for the pre-spawn. We get told that if you want to catch bass in the summertime, well, you're going to need one of these or you're going to need one of these. And for a lot of the time, that's absolutely true. I love dragging a worm. I love dragging a jig. In the summertime, I can catch some real toads. However, there are certain instances under certain conditions where you still can fish very quickly. You can cover water and catch fish. And there are conditions you need to be on the lookout for in order to make that happen. Now we're going to be discussing 3 different types of presentations that I use to cover water quickly. And you know, these are not secrets. These are things that a lot of guys are doing. Well, for the most part, I know 2 of them are. One of them you may not have heard of, you may not be as familiar with, or it might be surprising to you. But trust me, of those 3, that's probably the most successful one. Well, first of all, what are we talking about? Well, in the evening time, in the morning time, that water is slick calm. And sometimes during the middle of the day, you will see those bass who are now getting more and more keyed on bait fish as that water warms up. Well, top water is going to be a big play, right? And obviously, you're going to need something like this. This is a Heddon Super Spook, and these things are probably the best topwater baits I can think of to be throwing during the summertime. You can work them very fast. You can work them slow. You can change how you do your cadence, how you do your rhythm from cast to cast, or even during the cast. As we all know, everybody says it, vary your retrieve. It's a great way of giving the appearance of being alive, right? Because bait fish, even when they're struggling, they're not giving the same repetitive motion over and over again. They're being random and chaotic. And you can do that with one of these in your retrieve. And this has just been a real producer for me. It's been a real workhorse, especially this guy right here. It's a little bit smaller size. It's only a little 2-hook version. This is actually the saltwater version. And I like it because it's got, a more chrome color. It kind of stands out against that background. But I can work it slow. I can actually work this on a spinning combo, which I've done from time to time. That's what works for me. I got 10-pound braid tied to it, and I put a 10-pound, 8-pound monofilament leader on it when I'm working top water on a spinning combo. And I can use this on a bait cast with, another lighter setup, something that's got 10, 12-pound braid on it, something that I'm using a little bit lighter bait cast setup for. And this works great. I do it in the morning. I'm doing it in the evening when I'm seeing those bass busting up on shad. I grab this, regardless of what I'm throwing. If I'm seeing shad busting up, I reach for this and I try to bring it over the top of where I saw that bust up. Cast beyond it. You want to cast beyond where you saw that splash. Let those ripples fade just a little bit and then begin working it back quickly at first. And if you don't get any attention that way, try varying your retrieve faster and slower. These things are just phenomenal in the summertime, and a lot of guys are throwing them. It's a great way to cover water, and you can work them rather quickly. Now, next up, well, we've got a swim bait, right? I mean, this is a Eco Pro Tungsten Swing Shad. This is just essentially a Kitech clone, and I love these things. They work on a normal, regular swim bait jig head. This is just a little 1/8 ounce jig head. I basically paint these myself. That's something that I like to do. But if I'm fishing, lower in the water column, but not all the way to the bottom, then I will have something like this tied on. I'll throw it out there, let it go down, count it down, and then I will reel it in. And then I will stop and let it go back down to the bottom again, lower in that water column, and then I will reel, because every time you're reeling, you're bringing it up, and then you got to let it swing back down, and then you're bringing it up, and then you got to let it swing back down. And that's how, I'm getting a lot of bites with these. I can work these in multiple places in that water column by changing the type of head that I'm using. Like this guy right here. See, this is a bigger, more stout swim bait hook that I'm using. This is a 3/8 head. I can use this in deeper water, and I can keep it down in that deeper water with the same swim bait that I'm using, whether it's a 3.8 or a 4.25, anything in that area. I can keep this right down in that area. And I'm throwing this on a spinner. I've got 12-pound fluorocarbon on a regular 7-foot medium heavy rod, and that's the setup that I'm using for this. And again, this allows me to stay lower in the water column, and I can be more productive that way, especially when I'm looking for those fish that are trying to get out of the sun. They're hiding down in shade that's beneath the surface, laydowns, brush piles. And a lot of times I'll find that those fish aren't in those brush piles, but kind of using that brush pile as a home base as they kind of roam around it. So I'm casting this in those areas and working it around those brush piles and around those submerged laydowns. And that's where I'm getting a lot of those bites.
There we go. That's a nice one, honey. That's a nice one. On the swim bait. Well, that's not too great. Still kind of a dink for this lake. But look at him. He choked that. He wanted that. There we go.
And lately, well, I've got this guy tied on, and this is the tush hook from Core Tackle. This is the larger 4/0, 3/8 ounce size, or it might be a 3/16 ounce size, but I believe this is the 3/8 ounce size. And I've got a 4.75 Rage Swimmer on here. And this, on this spinning setup, this is a little bit heavier spinning setup. This is a medium heavy 7-foot rod, 12-pound fluorocarbon. And I need that with these because these are heavier gauge hooks. And you're going to have a little bit more backbone to set that hook. Otherwise, you're going to end up losing some of those. But I can use this down by the bottom. This is whenever I'm fishing closest to the bottom, when I'm almost dragging the bottom. I almost treat this like I'm doing a Carolina rig. That's how I'm fishing this, is I will sweep it along the bottom, keep the belly, just as low as I can without actually dragging in that mud, but that hook will be wiggling back and forth. And I can really attract a lot of attention that way. Those fish have never seen anything like that. And it's, again, as we say a million times, show them something different. And that's one way that they are seeing something different. And I'm finding out as I'm working with that technique and trying different ways of keeping this along the bottom in different retrieves, I'm actually getting quite a few bites. But at the same time, I'm covering water. I'm working more quickly than I would be with a Texas rig or a football jig. So another way that I can actually work faster. And lastly, well, good old jerkbait, and this is just an H2O Express regular jerkbait. I mean, obviously it's a copy of every other type of jerkbait out there, a Mega Bass or a Berkeley Stunner or whatever. But these things are only about $6. So that right there, that's a big draw for me because I tend to fish fisheries that have a lot of garbage in them, a lot of slop, so the potential to get hung up and lose baits is quite high. But these, I'm practically burning these. I'm not fishing these at all like you would in the winter. Guys see me tying a jerkbait. I tell other guys that I'm tying on a jerkbait. They look at me like I'm crazy. If you know, you know. If you know to throw a jerkbait in someone, then you know how productive they can be, and you know how fast you can actually work them. It's you can do jerk crank, jerk crank, jerk crank, jerk crank. You don't have to do any pauses, but I'm still doing it with a lot of slack in my line. I'm trying to make sure that I'm popping the slack out of my line and then cranking, and then popping the slack out of my line and then I'm cranking. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I still want the maximum amount of side-to-side action. I'm not trying to give it any pauses though, and I can elicit quite a few reaction strikes, especially as we know in the summertime, that strike zone, the area that those fish are going to reach out to go after prey, go after bait, it's very much shrunk down. You basically got to hit those fish on the top of the head. But this, whenever, goes by them pretty quickly, they can't resist it. I have caught so many fish in the summertime. I catch more fish in the summertime on a jerkbait than I ever do in the winter. This has got to be the number one on the list. If you're looking to throw something faster in the summertime, something to cover water with in the summertime, then a jerkbait has definitely got to be your number one choice, or at least in the running. So there you have it. There are 3 baits, 3 different types of presentations that you can use during the summer whenever you've got good conditions. Whenever you see fish busting, whenever you can see current flowing, whenever you've got a little bit of wind, but you can still cover water. You can still fish faster. You don't have to always drag a jig and a worm. Those catch fish, but sometimes you can actually speed things up and be more productive. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.